I'd like to call the regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 8th to order. If everybody could please stand at this time and state the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To make the meeting official tonight, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Gutenkopf. Here. Pezza. Absent. Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner. Absent. Wagner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum established. Going to number 2 on our agenda is the written communications and petitions from the public. At this time, if there are any written communications or petitions coming from the public, if you please bring those forward and give them to Clerk Spencer at this time. Seeing none, I will then go to the public forum portion of our meeting. And this is where anybody could speak about anything that's related to Elmhurst city business. You'd have 3 minutes, and all I would have to ask you to do is state your name and your address, and then we give you 3 minutes from when you start speaking. So if there's anybody at this time that would like to speak regarding any city matter, please raise your hand, and I'd be happy to call on you and have you come up to either one of the 2 microphones on either side of the room here. Anybody that would like to speak for public comment tonight? Okay, Miss?
Thank you for not calling me ma'am. My name is Katie Muno. I live at 134 North Larch Avenue, and I've had the pleasure of working with the city along with my neighbors to help bring the Larch Avenue parking deck to fruition with some bumps along the way. I just wanted, I know this is on for the consent agenda tonight, and I just wanted to make one point before we move forward. What you're looking at, what we were given today on our doorstep, is a design that reflects open windows here. And our concern when we presented to the Public Works Committee was that it was going to be glaring light not only to the neighbors directly north of the building, but onto the block. I know that this plan was sent on by Mr. Kennedy on the 24th, but I was fortunate to get a voicemail from Mr. Borchert letting me know that the architect did identify that those windows on that side of the north facade do not need to be open for ventilation purposes. But I do also know that what you're approving tonight does not reflect that particular element. And I think for public record, for legal purposes, to protect you guys, the architect, and us on the block, an amendment needs to be made or something needs to happen so that whatever gets passed reflects that change. I think that's just the right legal thing to do for all of us. So I'm asking somebody on the dais tonight to address that issue for us. But in the meantime, we thank all of you for working with us. It's been a pleasure, and it's going to be kind of neat to see this go up. Thanks.
Thank you, Miss. Anybody else for public comment at this time? This woman right here. Thank you.
My name is Shar Yarima. That's Y-A-R-E-M-A. And my husband Peter and I live at 539 Van Auken. Van Auken, that's north of North Avenue, even north of 290. Or maybe you might know it as that part of residential Elmhurst that is deemed an appropriate location for pawn shops. Or to further clarify our home location, we live in the region of town where it's not considered a priority to vet and conduct due diligence on new businesses that will affect the safety and well-being of its residents. Now, we have lived in Elmhurst for nearly 40 years, raising our children here and enjoying and supporting all of Elmhurst's wonderful amenities. For many years, I have heard murmurings of neighbors insinuating that city, school, and park officials seem to treat the residents who live in the north part of Elmhurst as second-class citizens. Au contraire, that cannot be, I would say, as I defended our fine town. We are all Elmhurst. But you know, maybe, just maybe, I have been foolishly naive all these years. I now realize that our town has no problem approving a pawn shop near our homes in North Elmhurst, but is aghast at the thought of having a pawn shop locate near homes in the center of town. And now our police are concerned about the increase in crime that often attends pawn shops. Now they are concerned about the additional detective staff time that will be needed to check the daily list of pawns. Now the city has approved zoning ordinance text amendments for these shops. Now the city thinks pawn shops might only be safe and appropriate in C3 general commercial districts. Too bad for us that Mr. Pawn got grandfathered in our neighborhood before our city officials had their epiphany. And if you're wondering why no one in North Elmhurst attended the public hearing on August 27th, maybe, just maybe, our neighborhood residents considered it a bit antithetical to attend a meeting to discuss building a barn door after all the horses left the barn 2 months ago. Fellow residents, aren't we all Elmhurst citizens? Should not all residents in all sections of our fine town be protected from undesirable business establishments?
You have about 10 more seconds, Miss,
Or
and I'll let you
shall I
continue.
assume that adult bookstores and strip clubs don't need to be properly vetted as long as they locate in that part of town? Please, please reassure me that I have not defended our public officials in vain.
Thank you, Miss. And if you're going to stay for the meeting, I'll give it a little report on this a little bit later. I normally don't respond to the public forum, but I will be making a comment on this during the mayor report, and I do appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else for public comment tonight that would like to speak? Any reason, anything on behalf of Elmhurst? 3 minutes. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I will now close the public comment at this point. And the next item will be the consent agenda. At this time, I'd ask our council, is there anything on the consent agenda that you would consider to look to have removed, that you would either have a question on or possibly would like to vote no on? At this time, please speak at this time. Alderman Brown, item?
N as in Nancy.
N as in Nancy? Okay. You too. Anybody else? Alderman Rose.
Minor questions on L, M, and S.
Excuse me. L, M, and S. S. Susan. Okay. Anybody else? Questions or possibly want to vote no on any one of these before we go ahead and approve the elements of the consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none, at this time I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda, less items L, M, N, and S. Motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Healy, and by voice vote, by roll call vote, I would ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll on that motion, please.
Wagner.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Okay. Mulliner, absent. That's 12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion carries to approve the items on the consent agenda, less items L, M, N, and S. At this point, we will go to item L. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the report, please. Recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the change order submitted by In Situ Form Technologies USA, Inc., in the amount of $58,485 be accepted, and that resolution authorizing this change order be prepared. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, Jim Kennedy, Chairman, preface that with, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Michael Graham, Vice Chairman, Pat Shea, and Chris Healy.
All righty. And at this point, I'd ask for a motion to put this on the table. I would look to Alderman Rose.
I think that should be the chair, but I'll make
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
Alderman Rose and then Alderman Kennedy. And I would defer to Alderman Kennedy for
I'm
the...
actually going to defer to Susan.
Excuse me,
since-
Alderman Rose, I'm sorry.
If I could, please.
We'll get it right.
Thank you. I just have a question. I think this is great. My question was not clear from this report. There have been a lot of issues of, I want to call it flooding, surcharging, in the area of the 700 block of North Indiana. This is a change that addresses that. Is that correct? They were one of the areas identified when we had a meeting in April. So is this change going to affect that group of homes up there? It's one of the problems that was identified, so will this affect that group of homes up there?
You want to take this? Sure.
Alderman Brown?
Yes, during committee that was discussed, especially since I happen to be in the 3rd Ward as well. There is a potential of this affecting. They are not sure if this will impact that on Indiana. There is provisions and ideas on what, if this does not impact it, what could be done to impact on Indiana, as you're probably well aware, Alderman Rose. But they did state, the Public Works Director, Mike Hughes, did state that they believe that this is, part of the problem. Maybe not the whole solution, but part of the problem in regards to the sanitary backups, especially on Indiana, due to the smaller size with 2 larger sites going into that sewer.
Alderman Rose?
Thank you. Then I applaud the committee for this. There's been a lot of work on flooding in this area in particular, and there has been a lot of discussion that this is one of the things that may be. So if this does affect those folks on Indiana, this is great, and I wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you, Alderman Rose. Alderman Brown?
Yes, just to follow up, I would actually like to applaud the city staff and the rest of the city council on the contractor that we hired to pretty much do the research of the sanitary sewers in the city of Elmhurst, because they're the ones, the city as well as the contractor, are the ones who caught this issue, and it's a potentially a big fine for the north side of town. So.
Very good. And just so everybody's clear, the lining process is actually takes a lot of the older sewers and actually lines it so they basically become newer sewers and allow the disposal to go down, hopefully relieve a lot of the flooding, spot flooding issues that we have throughout the community. So great job to the chairman, Chairman Kennedy.
Yeah, just want to add to that, this is the reason why we spend the money that we do to put cameras down sewers and to look for problems. In this very case, we had a 10-inch line and an 8-inch line going into an 8-inch line. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out you're going to get a backup from that. So we're going to replace that with a 15-inch line. That's going to then go into an 18-inch line and, like we talked about, solve a problem that's down there at the moment.
Terrific. Thanks, everybody. Great questions and great follow-up. Any other discussion before we call the roll on this one? All right. Hearing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Rose.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion does carry. Next on to item M. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation report, please.
The Public Works and Building Committee recommends that Baxter and Woodman of Crystal Lake, Illinois, be authorized to proceed with the design of the additional anaerobic digester, and that the design is completed for application to IEPA by the March 31st, 2010 deadline for stimulus dollars or revolving loan funding. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Michael Graham, Vice Chairman, Pat Shea, and Chris Healy.
And ask for a motion to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Rose. followed up by Alderman Kennedy. Discussion. Alderman Rose.
Again, I have, in a sewer-based theme, apparently, I do have a question about this. I think that one of the basic responsibilities of a city is our sewer system, so this is clear, but this is a pretty big jump from projected engineering costs, and I understand it's, we think we have it in the sewer repair budget line, but I just have two simple questions about this, which is, because I did not have my budget with me, how much is actually in this line item that we're going to pull this $440,000 from? And then I suppose a second general question, which is, this is really based on the likelihood that we're going to get stimulus dollars. One, how likely is it, and what happens if we don't get those stimulus dollars? We're just going to, if you could just take a moment to explain that.
Well, certainly. I don't have the exact budget item, and I would defer to City Manager Borchert if he has that, but I think it was a difference of about 3 times compared to what the budgeted dollar amount was to what this project is. So it's a pretty significant dollar amount.
Right.
In terms of going ahead with it, really the reason is because, A, we feel we need it as a city to have a new anaerobic digester, not only from a capacity standpoint, but also because of the age of the equipment that's in that facility. So what we want to do, and again, this is just for the engineering portion of the project, we want to get this to the point where we can be considered for the stimulus dollars, and then should we be considered, we would then go forward with the project.
Alderman Rose, follow up.
Thank you. That was not clear to me. So what we're saying here is that we would not go forward with this full engineering piece. We would go forward with the engineering piece. That's going to come from the sewer repair line item. But if we don't get stimulus dollars, we wouldn't go forward with the whole project.
Correct.
So we're not committing ourselves to something on the basis of what I would call if-come, not income. So this is, so we are, okay, then that's fine. Then I have absolutely no problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we don't get stimulus dollars, we're going to be putting this back on the shelf.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So we can cover the engineering costs, okay, but this, if we go through with the whole thing, that's really based on whether we're going to get these stimulus dollars.
Ultimately, yes.
Actually, the implementation. Okay, that's fine.
City Manager Borchert, and I'll go to Alderman Healy.
Yeah, just to supplement the discussion, I would remind the council that this is to be financed from the utility fund, which is separate from the general fund. This is utility fund. Utility fund is financed by sewer and water rates, and the sewer and water rates, along with the 5-year projection, does provide for a number of capital projects that would be possible to apply for stimulus dollars. The separation in engineering costs, initially there was a very preliminary engineering evaluation of just the costs associated with dealing with the anaerobic digester. Mr. Stryker, in reviewing the engineering proposals with engineering firms, determined that this would be the more appropriate time to get a proposal to not just deal with the anaerobic digester, but all of the facilities that deal with the solids management train, the solids handling train, as Dennis refers to in his draft of the report in that second last paragraph. That's why the engineering proposal is a little bit higher than the very narrower scope of work. Get a design for all of what's necessary, and we'll apply for stimulus dollars if available. We'll take advantage of that. If that's not an opportunity for the Elmhurst community, we'll roll this project into the 5-year capital plan and make sure that the 5-year capital planning funds will accommodate appropriately the major items that need to be worked on here. So this is just first things first, get the work done, and then we'll evaluate.
Thanks, City Manager Borchert. Alderman Healy, you have a question?
Well, just a couple points to add. There is a possibility that we recover these $440,000 with the stimulus money, not just the money for the project, but for the engineering itself. And there's also the interest-free loan. There are grants through the state for interest-free loans that we're going for as well. Correct. So it's not just the money for, you know, the approximate $5 million for the anaerobic digester, but it's also, we're moving forward with this because we're hoping to get the money back. Even if we don't, we've got it budgeted. The other important thing, too, is that there is legislation that has been proposed and is before the EPA right now regarding phosphorus content. If that is passed into legislation, the demand on our water treatment goes way up, and we will need the third anaerobic digester. So basically what the engineering allows us to do is be ready to go should that come about. If it doesn't come about, yeah, we'd still like the new one, but it can't, you know, we'd still like the new digester, but it can wait. This just puts us in a position to move quickly, very quickly. Once we have the engineering, we can get going, whether it's to meet new EPA standards or if federal money comes available to pay for it, what have you. This just gets us in a position to move quickly, and we all felt it was the right thing to do to get into that position, regardless of whether we get stimulus money to pay for the engineering itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Healy. Any other discussion? Alderman Brown.
Last thing to add for this is that this is something that we have been postponing, and due to the stimulus dollars or the potential of, the committee really felt that it was an opportune time to move forward with the design and see if we can grasp some of those dollars for the city of Elmhurst. So, good opportunity for us.
Very good. Anybody else? Hearing no other discussion, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Rose.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion does carry. Next on the agenda is item N. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the city proceed with the design and construction of the First Street parking deck as described above. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, unsigned by Michael Bram, Vice Chairman, signed by Pat Shea and Chris Healy.
And I'd ask for a motion and a second to get this on the floor, please. Alderman Kennedy, motion, and a second by Alderman Shea. Discussion.
Okay. As we heard in the public forum, this is a project that we've had going on for, in this council, a number of months, and prior to that for as many months before. This project has gone very well, I would say. There's been a lot of involvement by the community. The developer, Arco Murray, has spent time meeting with the residents, hearing what they have to say about the project, showed them designs early on in the process and got their feedback. When we talked as a committee last week, we reviewed those designs. We came to some agreements on things, and that's why we're moving forward here. Related to the report, there were some corrections that I just want to highlight that people may not have picked up on from what we were originally put in the packet. First of all, there was some question in terms of the old site and the new site in terms of the impervious versus the pervious. This new site will not be 100% covered in terms of either asphalt or concrete. The net result is that it's a 15% of the site will be of grass, so we'll be dealing with our stormwater issue there. There had been some other questions about dealing with stormwater in a different way in terms of thinking about it differently. What we have found is that if we were to make a significant improvement in terms of putting a underground vault in that is something that's typically done in a much larger project, that could be an improvement that would cost upwards of $100,000, maybe closer to $200,000. So I think that's a little bit of a cost-prohibitive nature in terms of what we're talking about here. And so moving forward from a stormwater standpoint, we are covered. We meet the regulations. We have a better situation than we did before, and that's just looking at that area. If you were to add the area where the cul-de-sac is at Larch Avenue there, that's an even better situation. But if you want to talk about just the corner there, it's a better situation. Again, I highlight the fact that the residents in the area are pleased. The resident that lives just north of where the parking structure is going to be, I don't remember their name off the top of my head, but the emails and the interactions that I've seen that Mike Hughes has had with them have been very fruitful. There's a few questions related to privacy that city staff has made the commitment to make sure that that'll be addressed if there is a need for a fence to be put up. I think that's perfectly fine. And with the electrical going into the site, there may be a need for some improvements to the neighbors, and that will also be covered by the city's project. So those people are very pleased. There was a question, obviously, about the lighting and light pollution into those other areas. City Manager Borchert and Mike Hughes, they're 100% behind this project and are working with the residents. So if there is an issue going forward, that'll be completely taken care of.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Alderman Shea, you made the second. Would you like to speak, or otherwise I'll have Alderman Brown speak next?
I made the second.
Yeah, okay. Alderman Brown.
Thank you. I just want to first start out with saying that I'm in favor of this parking deck in this location. I am also glad that the city staff worked with the developer, with the residents in the area, to really come up with a good plan. There's a few points that I want to make that I also made in committee when we did discuss it at that point. I'm not in favor of the process that was had to get to this point. I believe that the process should have started both with residents as well as the city council at the same time to give us ample time to discuss this and do our due diligence. We've had one committee meeting in regards to a very significant project being this parking structure that not only affects the Larch Street residents, but residents throughout the city of Elmhurst. And it impacts them in many ways. One of the ways is just pure parking for the downtown area. Now, one of the questions I asked, and I have not received an answer, and I was told I did not need an answer for this question to be able to make a decision on the ultimate design, is what is this parking structure going to be used for? Is it going to be used for, I've been told by the mayor as well as the rest of the council that, you know, there's a potential of getting Metro dollars for Metro parking. So that would suffice for some commuter parking, which is a good thing. I was also told in committee when I asked this very question that this parking deck is meant to be the parking structure to support the Addison shopping corridor. That's a good thing. What about employee parking? I don't know if this is ample size to support one of those types of parking situations, all three, and how do we divide it up? One of the reasons why that's a concern of mine is because I didn't see a parking utilization until I made the inquiry after the committee meeting, and I asked that to be provided on everybody's dais this evening, because I did receive that information this past Friday. I think the utilization shows that, you know, especially the Adelaide deck is close to 100% almost all the time. That is critical, because I think that is utilized from a commuter parking standpoint. But to tail that into what I would like to see is, I wanted to understand we are in hard economic times, as we all know. There's discussions about what our budget shortfall will be, anywhere from $4 million to $6 million. Here's an opportunity for the city of Elmhurst to provide retail on the first floor of this parking deck structure. It wasn't discussed, to my knowledge. I brought up the question and said that it was discussed by city staff, and city staff decided that this is meant for Addison shopping parking, and that is the primary concern. Why wouldn't we take this opportunity to potentially boost our sales tax revenue, which is the core revenue source for the city of Elmhurst government, to have another business in this location? I'm not saying that's appropriate or not, but I'm saying, why didn't we take significant amount of time to debate that fact? And that's why I'm bringing it up today, because this is my first opportunity, other than committee, to bring up that concept, since even though I made multiple requests, it hasn't been discussed until tonight. So that was one thing that I would hope that everybody on the dais actually takes serious consideration of. because I am not for this proposal for that reason. I don't know if it's beneficial to have retail on the first floor in this area or not. There could be concerns and issues that would negate that altogether. But it hasn't, I don't feel at least, that we've done our due diligence to analyze that to see if it would be an appropriate place. I also brought up in committee where, in regards to environmental concerns. I suggested if we don't do retail, why don't we take a portion of the first floor for bike parking? So commuters can actually ride their bike to the train station and then therefore park in a covered area in the parking structure on the first floor and use the metro. Let's promote public transportation. That also I don't think has been discussed enough either. That was discussed briefly in the one public forum that I attended, and it was stated that it was decided that not to have it in here, and there's a possible location just to put some outdoor bike parking next to the parking deck structure. The next point I want to raise of concern of mine is that in committee, as well as I believe in the public forum that I did attend, there was really one option presented and shown. Now, from what I heard later, that the other two options were actually at the public forum, but they were not spoken to during that public forum. During committee, since I had access to these prior to, I passed around the other two options to my fellow committee members. Quite honestly, I think option one, their original concept that the developers proposed, is the best looking aesthetically. I think, and I don't want to speak for the residents, but I think that the residents' concerns were, as you heard some tonight, of how it will impact them from a traffic, from lights, you know, and how it would really impact them. I don't really, at least in the public forum, I didn't hear any questions or concerns on aesthetically what they would prefer or what anybody in the city of Elmhurst would prefer. So the big points and the big reasons why I'm not for this is, one, I really think that we're taking one of the options that's not as aesthetically pleasing, at least in my opinion, and two, we're passing up an opportunity for additional retail space in our downtown. Now, I don't know, and I don't have a crystal ball if it will be filled today or tomorrow, but this is a structure that's going to be built and going to remain here from 50 to 100 years, would be my guess. So why would we pass on the opportunity for retail today, especially when we are in hard economic times like we are? Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Anybody else for discussion? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to debate the relative merits of whether or not we should build this parking garage. I think we are at the point now where what we need to make sure we're building is something that we're all going to be able to live with. I heard the comments from the residents that are on the block right next to this, and I've had a lot of opportunity to talk with them about how it's going to impact them. I am a little concerned that we've talked and we've got some great verbal reassurance that the architects are going to make sure that light from cars driving up and down the ramps isn't going to shine through the windows of this garage. It's hard for me to tell from the drawings what windows are functional and which windows are merely for looks, for aesthetic reasons, but aren't going to let light go through. And Alderman Kennedy spoke to this a little bit, that he believes that, you know, we've made these promises. I'd be a lot more comfortable if this committee report would simply address this outstanding concern that the neighbors have, that we're just going to put it in writing and ease all of our fears, that we all are talking about exactly the same thing. I know how easy it is in construction projects. I've remodeled my house to assume that, yeah, well, I agreed to that, and yeah, I promised I'd do that, or I'm not sure I understood what you were talking about, and when it's all said and done, then we're snipping about who said what. If we just put it in writing, then we're all on the same page about it. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the committee report to include a statement that we will ensure that the window spaces facing the house to the north of this property are not functioning windows that will allow light through those spaces.
Okay. So we have a motion to amend the report based on what you just mentioned. We have a second. Alderman Kennedy?
Okay with that?
Okay, we're okay with that? Okay. And I would ask Clerk Spencer to clarify the recommendation along with the amendment, please. Is that okay, Patty?
I don't know if I could do that. She spoke kind of quickly. What I gathered was to amend the committee report to put in a statement regarding non-functioning windows on the north side of the facade, because you want to guarantee, in other words, that what windows are functioning and those that are just for aesthetics, so no light shines in.
Okay.
That's basically what you said. That's
Yes.
a big motion, but that's what you
Okay.
want.
So we're approving the report with the amendment of making the windows in a fashion where they will not deflect light into those homes.
And then it's on the record, I guess.
And it's on the
is what she
record.
wants.
Okay. Any other discussion at this point? Alderman Shea.
And I do. I'm glad we're addressing the concerns of what we heard from the residents today and getting that taken care of. As far as what the residents, how they like the building, I did call some of them. They seemed very happy with what was selected. And then, of course, we did receive, again, that letter from the resident that is just north of the parking garage who is happy with it and would like us to go forward with it the way it is. As far as the retail, being in retail, that's kind of iffy being so far away from the downtown business district. It's most retail people would like to be in with the rest of the group. It is quite a distance away, and because we are so tight with commuter parking, I feel that that should be all, and might end up all being commuter parking. And then there won't be any spaces available to come and shop at those retail stores. Also, as far as the bike parking, we did talk about that, about maybe putting some outside. The people from the bike task force didn't want anything inside because bikes driving in. Yeah, he'd mentioned the bikes driving in with cars, with cars. And he also said that bikers do like to be as close to the train station as they can.
Okay, very good. Alderman Healy?
Well, Alderman Shea stole a little bit of what I wanted to say, but I'll just reemphasize that in committee we did discuss bike parking. Bob Hole, who's the chairman of the bike task force, said himself that he did not favor inside the garage parking because you're mixing bikers with commuters or cars. What he asked for and what, and I forget the gentleman's name from ARCO that was there, was covered outside parking, even if that cover was on the outside of the structure, and both the gentleman from ARCO Murray and Mike Hughes committed that that would not be an issue, and that's something we could add in without having it be part of this design. So that's the first thing, just to add on to what Alderman Shea said. The second thing, and I certainly support Alderman Gutenkopf's amendment, but as I recall, but I certainly understand the need to get it in writing, but as I recall, the question was asked in committee about the windows to the north side, about having light shine through them, and I recall that we were told that the windows would be light resistant or something along those lines. So I think they're there, but because it's not in writing, and I certainly agree that it should be, I will fully support the amended report. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Healy. And one thing I wanted to mention before Alderman Brown, in talking with the folks at Metra, they tell us, based on their research, that we are virtually at 100% capacity. 95% is the number he threw out at me. And they are doing, along with Senator Pankow, everything they can to secure his grant dollars. Now, this project was started long before I became mayor, and in my opinion, it's a great project. And it was a twofold project, one parking deck being on Addison with retail first floor. This deck, because of the location, strategic to the train station, was strictly a commuter deck. 285 spots, which are desperately needed for those commuters. So just want to speak for the record. Those are the facts that are in front of us, and I'll let everybody decide how they want to vote on this. But Alderman Brown, I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you. And I don't debate the fact in regards to the need for additional commuter parking. One of the conversations that we had in committee was, I asked the question of why are we pretty much maxing out on this location to get as many spots in this location as possible. And they said, you know, if we're going to do it, why don't we go all the way? Which I do agree with, because we really do need the parking for multiple reasons. The reasons why I was, I guess, making noise under my breath in regards to the bike parking was what was stated in committee, and I just want to clarify this. What was suggested was that the bikers would, bicycle riders, let me rephrase that, the bicycle riders would utilize the same entrance, ingress and egress that the cars would, and that would cause a conflict, and I definitely agreed that that would cause a potential traffic accident waiting to happen. What I'm suggesting is, if retail would not be appropriate, to have a first floor biking storage, which would be a separate entrance and which would be dedicated to that. At a later date, we could convert it to a retail space. So that would be a separate entrance, and that is what was advocating for. Retail, or an idea would be a bike storage area for the Metro commuters, and not utilizing the same ingress and egress, because that is an accident waiting to happen. The other thing in regards to the retail space, I don't know, I see on the other side on Park, you know, retail up and down further away from the train station, and that is successful. So I'm definitely not in the field. I'm not my own business owner of downtown, but I would, you know, hasten to say that we should just pass up on an opportunity to have potential retail space and bring in extra revenue.
Thanks, Alderman Brown. Alderman Kennedy.
I want to further a little bit along the bike parking, and I can't really speak for Bob Hull, but I have been working with Bob quite a bit with the Bike Task Force. Our group is committed to making Elmhurst a more bike-friendly community and ultimately getting that status for the whole city. As we talked about it, yes, there was a question related to bikes coming in and out of the same areas that the cars were coming out, but as Bob Hull talked about, best situation would be to have something on the outside of the building, potentially covered, maybe inclusive of some bike bins that, if people are familiar with the area in Villa Park by their Historical Society, the old train station there on Villa Avenue, something similar to that. Maybe not the exact same design, but something where somebody can put their bike in, lock it up, pay a monthly or an annual fee to make sure it's all set in there. And that was the thing that him speaking for the bike committee was the best option. The idea of having retail in that building, you know, is a good thing to talk about. However, we have a distinct need for parking. There, as you've said, Mr. Mayor, that Metro said we have issues, so there could be up to half of that structure dedicated to Metro. Who knows? But we have that. We have parking for people that are working in downtown Elmhurst that are currently using spots that may be better used for people shopping in that area, and shoppers themselves. So we have a definite need for parking. It's a little bit off of the main area that we want. We're going to be putting a parking deck on Addison, hopefully, in the future. And so my belief that retail is not the best use of that space right now. Regarding the designs, I think we could talk about designs till we're blue in the face. The one thing I like about this process is that Arco Murray went to the residents pretty much before they even came to us, because they knew that those guys out there were the guys that are going to have to live with it. So, you know, what happened is Arco Murray worked with them, came to us, worked with city staff, and said, this is the best option to go forward in. That's what we looked at in the committee meeting. We were very pleased with what we saw, and I think the most telling piece of it was there wasn't a single resident that came to our meeting last week, because in our belief, with the public forum and all the work that's been done by the city staff, that whole group was very pleased with what they saw. Now, certainly there was a question that we are now amending, and that's perfectly fine. And I think that answers all of the questions that are currently out there. It's a good project. The neighbors are pleased with it. Yes, we will probably make some amendments to the project in the future for bike parking, but that's not anything that holds up what we have to do here. And by having more parking in the downtown, it solves part of our commuter parking and assists us as we go forward with the need to open up a second front, so to speak, of Addison Street for more development and more business and everything that comes along with it.
Very good. Any other discussion? City Manager Borchardt, I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf.
Just quick, as it relates to the utilization of the structure upon completion, until there would be a grant, if there is a grant, the city is in full charge of the structure because the city's paid for the structure. The council's past direction relative to utilization and designation of spaces is to try to balance the three demands: shopper demand, all-day demand, which is split between employees that work downtown Elmhurst and need an all-day space, and residents and others that use the city's parking facilities to park and then commute to the city of Chicago. If there is a grant from Metro will require that spaces which they pay for be only used for commuters that ride the train. However, until there would be a grant, the city council's in charge of the utilization, and it would be the city staff's recommendation that it be all-day parking and split between commuters and perhaps employees of the downtown. But if and when shoppers would need more spaces, and if those shoppers would find this location to be desirable, certain spaces would be then designated for shoppers. Presently, we do not see, from a city staff perspective, a demand for shoppers to be in this deck. So our short-term recommendation to the council would be that it would be all-day parking. But unless there's a grant from Metro, the city council's in charge of this structure with certainly help from city staff to advise and suggest, but we would, until there would be a demand for shopper parking, it would be all-day parking. There was a notion that if the Charter 1 site redevelops, there may be in the redevelopment some need for shopper parking or customer parking, and that's another part of the design of this structure. It provides for a certain growth opportunity and parking for the growth when or if and when that occurs. In the meantime, it would be, from my perspective, all-day parking.
Thanks, City Manager Borchardt. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, technically, we do have a motion on the table, and we're getting a bit beyond the bounds of that motion.
Right.
I would like to make some comments about stormwater, but standing of procedures, we probably ought to approve the motion before we go on to other topics.
Very good, very good. Okay. So we have the motion and a second to approve the doc with the modification of...
Just to approve the modification to the document, then we'll have to approve the document.
Okay. City Clerk Spencer, if you could please call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Lipscomb.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion does carry. On to item number S.
No,
So we have to
Oh, excuse me. I'll go back to the
main
original motion. That's right. I apologize. Yes.
I'd like to make a few comments about stormwater management on this site. I know I've talked about this before, and I understand that increasing the amount of pervious surface gives us an opportunity to capture some of that rainwater just by the fact that it's now falling on grass and not on asphalt. That's a wonderful thing. I still say we're missing an opportunity for the want of $100,000. We're missing an opportunity to vastly improve the way we manage stormwater on this site. I think meeting the county's requirements is a great thing, but that's about the minimum effort we could possibly put into this project. And we'd be required to do that no matter what. The county wouldn't let us build if we were negatively impacting the stormwater. What we have here is an opportunity to make Elmhurst look like a leader, to be forward-thinking about how we manage stormwater, to critically evaluate what this is going to add to the cost of a project that we have openly discussed will be competitively bid in an environment where we may realize real savings because contractors simply aren't very busy now. If we ever had an opportunity to make our money go as far as possible, this seems to be it. And I regret that we have adopted an attitude that just meeting the county standards is fine. We signed the Cool Cities Initiative. We, as a city, host a green fair every year. We talk about bicycling as an alternative to driving. We want to reduce our carbon emissions. We talk a big game. We have a golden opportunity here to do more than that. And I regret that we are taking the easy way out. We're meeting the county's guidelines. We could have done a lot more. And I think that's extremely short-sighted of us.
Thank you, Alderman Gutenkopf. Alderman Kennedy.
I'd like to think we're taking the best way out, not the easy way out. And the reason is because this would be an increase in the cost of the project anywhere between $100,000 and $200,000. So even if we got the best deal possible, half of that, we're still spending between $50,000 and $100,000 for getting a very incremental improvement in stormwater. We're talking about one lot here in the whole size of the city of Elmhurst that we would be affecting. It's not worth the money in my books, and I don't think any of us would spend $50,000 to improve such a small area.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Alderman Brown.
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of expand on some of the things I talked about and comments made since I last spoke on this topic. The utilization study shows that's been provided to you that free parking is in the morning at 37% utilized, in the afternoon is 71% utilized. With this increase in parking spaces up to 200, I think it was 84, it would definitely add and lower the utilization, which is definitely a good thing. With that said, though, in regards to should retail go here or not, I guess anybody can debate that fact, and unless there's actual evidence, I'm not sure what side to take on that. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is that I don't know on how many spaces we actually need, because I don't know on how this parking deck's going to be divvied up. Not to speak for Bob Hull, myself either, but I think he was for covered bicycle parking. His first option that he was given in the committee discussion was the same ingress and egress. Obviously, he does not want that. I would not want to see that for our residents either. If given a proposal of, hey, we carved out a small section of this to have indoor parking, bicycle parking / storage, I think he would jump in the chance compared to outside, lock it up, and possibly eventually have some roof over the bikes that may or may not protect them from the elements. So I just want to stress the fact of an opportunity that we will not have again to have another retail space in or near, depending on your perspective, our downtown area.
Thanks, Alderman Brown. Alderman Morley, and I'll go to Alderman Nybo.
I'd like to call the question.
Question has been called. Second. We have a second by Alderman Hipskin. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll on the underlying report, please.
Okay. Kennedy.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye. Point of order, are we calling the roll on calling the question or calling the roll on the report?
No, unless there's a challenge to the call of the question. This is the roll on the original motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Bram.
Nay.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 2 absent.
11 ayes, 1 nay, 2 absent. That motion does carry. Next on the agenda is item S. I ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation of that report, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare management and lease agreements with David King and Associates, Inc. for the 180 West Park Avenue property to expire November 30th, 2014. Respectfully submitted, Finance Council and Affairs and Administrative Services Committee, unsigned by Stephen Hipskin, Chairman. It's signed by Kevin York, Vice Chairman, Mark Mulliner, and Diane Gutenkopf.
All right, as for a motion, please, in a second. Alderman Rose, motion, second by anybody else? Alderman Young. Discussion, Alderman Rose.
Actually, I'd like to apologize. I pulled this in error.
Okay.
I have no question with it.
All right.
And I urge us all to vote for it.
Okay. Alderman Hipskin.
It's unsigned by me because I was gone that
Okay.
week.
Okay.
I
Thank
would
you.
sign it.
And you would sign it normally?
Yes.
Very good.
I will sign it.
We'll
right now.
sign, have Alderman Hipskin sign that as we speak, being that he was absent. Any other discussion? Alderman Healy.
Point of order, just, I'm sorry, Chairman Hipkins being allowed to sign the report. Previously, when I missed a Public Works meeting, I was not allowed to sign a report. Certainly respect Chairman Hipkins' ability to sign the report. I just want I just want to know what the consistency here.
Well, can I, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Mr.
City
Chairman.
Attorney Storino.
We're, Alderman Healy's absolutely right. On a prior report, I had a problem because I was worried that the Open Meetings Act might be an issue with respect to that, signing a report, which might be considered tantamount to voting and not being present, which would not be permissible. So we're trying to work through this with City Manager Borchert to try to find I guess the best practical solution to that situation. And I guess in the interim, I have to stand by the same opinion that I gave with respect to the Public Works Committee, and that was, if you're not there, it's difficult to sign and cast a vote if it's going to be tantamount to a vote. That became important in that committee. I don't know that it's as important in this committee with Alderman Hipskin, because I think his signature would just be a kind of a reaffirmation. It wouldn't be casting it. It wouldn't be approving it one way or another.
So we'll scratch his name.
So I guess at this point, I'm saying that
That's fine.
if Alderman
You're still
Hipskin doesn't
absent.
mind, we would ask him not to sign.
Okay.
You see, the issue I had, the issue was, it was an open meeting, a roll was called on who could vote, people there voted, to then cast it in a majority, that wasn't the way it came down?
Well, it's still a report, whether it's a report out of Public Works or a
And
report out
that-
of Finance. It doesn't matter to me, and
Okay.
with my apologies to Alderman Hipskin, I mean, my intention is not to try, but I want to make sure we stay consistent, and if
I agree.
either we can or we can't, it shouldn't be by committee, it should be for committees or no committees.
Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing you saying is you would prefer us not to sign it if we're not there.
Until we get a policy developed that is going to be consistent across the board. My position was, with respect to Public Works, that I directed you not to sign, and I think I would take the same position this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
And City Attorney Storino, you are going to look into that, and we will have a
Yeah.
firm policy here shortly, you think?
Yes, Tom and I have discussed this. I know it's your practice to sign these committees, present or not, sign these reports, whether you're present or not present. So we're going to try to examine that and come up with a policy that better affects what you've done in the past and what we should do going forward.
Very good. Good question, Alderman Healy. Thank you, City Attorney Storino.
I have a question for
Alderman
the city attorney, just to clarify what he's talking about. What I'm hearing is that it's possible, if you interpret it a certain way, it could be a violation of open meetings. It's not just simply us figuring out how to amend our municipal code to allow it, because even if we amended our municipal code to allow it, it still could be a possible violation of the Open Meetings Act.
And that was my fear with respect to the Public Works Committee meeting that occurred a few months ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Hipskin.
I'd like to withdraw my signature from
All right. Alderman Gutenkopf had to step off the dais, but I don't see any other discussion, never heard any other discussion. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Okay, that would be Rose,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Gutenkopf, absent. Passett, oh, okay, there you go. Gutenkopf, aye. Passett, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion does carry. Next on the agenda, item 5, committee reports. Item A is the report on consultant agreement. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the recommendation, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare a consultant agreement with Mr. Ken Bartels for administrative services as described above. Respectfully submitted, Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee. Unsigned, Stephen Hipskin, Chairman. Signed, Kevin York, Vice Chairman. Signed, Mark Mulliner. Unsigned, Diane Gutenkoff.
And to put this on the floor, it is for a motion and a second, please. Alderman Rose and Alderman Wagner. Discussion. Alderman Rose.
Let me just start out by saying, I know Ken Bartels, and he is an incredibly fine gentleman. So all of my comments have nothing to do with him or the need for that. I have just a couple questions. The body of the report says that I would just like to know how much we are saving by doing this. And my second question is, do we have any performance indicators in place here? So Ken Bartels is a guy who's given very much to this city. But I know if you don't say clearly what it is we want someone to do, I think we have a route for failure. So I just want to make sure, how do we know after a period of time that, A, we've communicated correctly what we want Mr. Bartels to do, and that Mr. Bartels is meeting those? Do we have some indications of performance that say, some benchmark, some way to say this is, we are absolutely on the right track for this?
Thanks, Alderman Rose. City Manager Borcher, would you like to clarify that by chance?
I actually don't have performance indicators. We've got 3 areas of required work, which I've reviewed with Mr. Bartels and discussed his experience and his expertise in those areas. Those areas are fundraising, communication, and economic development areas. And I've discussed with him the objective, which is to bring in his expertise at a overarching and strategic level to identify areas of opportunity in those 3 categories for implementation to be really carried out by city staff, and city staff then to coordinate with a proper committee and the city council as to those areas. Occasionally, some of the work would actually be performed by Mr. Bartels. That would probably be more in the area of the fundraising and coaching of the Heritage Foundation Board for fundraising. And I will, I'll work with certainly Mr. Bartels and Mayor DeCiani, the proper committees to bring his recommendations to you, and if it's not of the level that we find valuable, we'll certainly discontinue the consulting assignment. But if he's not performing, we're not going to continue to work with him for 3 years. I do not anticipate that would happen. I anticipate, based on his experience and his tenure and his success in his work at Elmhurst College, that he will be very valuable for us, and we'll see that and understand that. But we will be evaluating that as we go.
Follow-up.
Yes, Alderman Rose, and then I'd like to add a few things as well.
A follow-up on that is, I do see that one of the responsibility is fundraising. So oftentimes if you ask someone to fundraise, or even as a consultant, you have an idea, we would expect something that so many groups contacted, or you have benchmarks in terms of amounts that we would expect someone to be able to assist us in raising. So I guess, I think, let me just say again, Ken Bartels is a man for whom I have great respect. But I also don't want to, I want to make sure that he's in a position that we're not giving several messages that say, yeah, we want you to do this, but we're never really clear about what success is or how we think you're doing. I just think that's not fair to Mr. Bartels. So that's important for me to know about in relation to that, because we are, and that my second point of the question was how much we are saving, in fact, by doing this. We're talking about a maximum amount, I understand, of $76,050 per year. That's a maximum amount we're asking to be spent on this contract. So I'm just curious what we expect to save from it as well.
Tom, can I help out a little bit too?
Certainly, please.
City Manager Borcher and I discussed this at length, and we felt we had two weaknesses. Our development director at the museum was not bringing in what we thought he should be bringing in, and we felt we needed a boost in economic development. And so we made two changes in both of those positions. Probably well over $200,000 in salaries with benefits and everything. The projected budget for Mr. Bartels is about $45,000. And so we will have a significant net savings because we are paying him as a contract employee, not as or an independent contractor, I should say, not as an employee with benefits and everything. Mr. Bartels has got a proven track record. He's been a director of the Economic Development Commission. He was president of that commission. I call him Mr. Elmhurst. This guy is the guy I think that can make it rain for us. It's an at-will agreement, so even though it's a 3-year agreement, if this doesn't work out, whether it's on our side or his side, he can say, or we could say, this isn't working out. I think it's a win-win for the city. These are tough times. We've made significant cuts already to the tune of close to $1 million in salaries in areas where we felt we could make those cuts without affecting services. This is one of those areas. Bartels is a great coach. He can motivate a lot of our existing people, including Mr. Said and other folks in our economic development area. Compliment to Than Warner as well. He's a great relationship maker and knows who the players are on the development side, as well as he's done that for the college for many years. Proven track record. So I think the goals will be specific based on each area, and with the museum, they do their fundraisers, and we've got history of what they've done in the past, and so we've got some benchmarks there that we're going to try and definitely maximize and go over and above. And I think he's the guy to do it, and the guy that can make that happen. Alderman Rose.
Yeah, point of clarification. So there will be, you raised my very point, which is we had a guy, the foundation had a guy that people thought he was not raising what should have been. So it will be clear to Mr. Bartels, so he doesn't, we don't trip him up, at what the expectations are. Because I think that's not fair to someone to say, but gee, we want you to do that, but we're not going to set a benchmark for you. And the second thing, I need some clarification then. I'd heard the $45,000 number as well, but in the material, it looks like it is, and perhaps I'm not reading it correctly or not understanding this correctly, it looks like it's up to $76,000. Could you just clarify that for me?
There's a maximum of 30% over or under, or possibly. Mr. Bartels intends to work about 10 to 15 hours a week for us, which would keep him within that $45,000 range. If we were to go 30% above the 15 is where those numbers could go up a little bit higher. But given his clientele base with other clients, we don't see him necessarily going to that level. However, with the museum, where there are fundraisers going on, he may need to put more hours in certain times than others. So we want to give him that flexibility as well, too. But in reality, we're probably more than likely going to be looking at about an overall of around $45,000. So if there is a situation where we need him more and he has the ability to put more time in, he does have that ability to
Up to $76,000,
correct.
which is more than 30%. So that's what I'm struggling with.
Right.
Perhaps I'll try and provide a little clarity. At the meeting, the committee meeting, City Manager Borchert came in and explained in further detail, outside what we got in the meeting we were in, exactly what his plans were for Mr. Bartels. And at the time, as it's in the minutes of our meeting, the range of hours discussed was 10 to 15. And we all know as a buyer and seller, if you're selling something and you say 10 to 15, you're thinking 15 and the buyer's thinking 10. So what I asked Marilyn Gaston to do was to clarify the report somewhat after it was issued, because all the math was not done at the committee meeting, but done after the fact. And basically what I wanted to do was just clarify and set for cap purposes only the 700 hours, whatever the final number, 845 hours, as the math on that works out to 12 and a half hours a week on average, 10 to 15, times 52 weeks, which I understand now it's going to be 50 because Mr. Bartels has vacation planned in there.
Oh.
And, which the
Seems
city is not
excessive.
paying for under the contract,
Right.
under the contract program. And a 30% buffer, as Mr. Borchert clearly asked for in the committee meeting, and the committee said that we were in agreement with that buffer as a way to get accomplished all these things that the mayor has said we want to get accomplished, and we all realize as a city council that we need to get accomplished. Having just recently eliminated just short of $200,000 in salaries and benefits with the people who were laid off due to the economic conditions that we're in, we should see a net savings even on the cap side in excess of $120,000, but I don't think any of us fully expect for the cap to be reached. I think we're looking at that as a cap number, and because of Mr. Bartels' he's got other commitments with, as the mayor said, other clients, and Mr. Borchert has mentioned this too, that 10 to 15 hours is going to be about his limit. Some weeks may be 20, other weeks may be nothing. But overall, we're looking at that 10 to 15 hour total, which drove the 12 and a half hours used for the calculation.
And just to clarify then, the cap on this is $76,000. That's the cap.
Not to exceed, correct.
That's what I want to know. Okay. Again, let me just follow this up by, I think Ken Bartels has just done a fantastic job in this town, and I wish him all the success in the world, because I think that he really can do just a great job, and I just want to make sure we're very clear when we set a consultation agreement with someone, and what we expect and what we're going to pay, so.
Thanks, Alderman Rose. Alderman Hipskin.
I didn't sign this report once again, and I don't want to sign this report until we have a policy in place. But I am fully in support of this report. And the numbers that we're pushing around right now are a little different in my calculations. And those different calculations are about $200,000 to $225,000 per year on a 3-year basis, which really turns out to be about $650,000 roughly over 3 years that we save the city. So we all have different calculations on the time and the results that we're going to get. So if we do a fundraiser, which X amount of money is raised, let's take in the results of his work too. So, and that number could, actually double my projection. So, I will not sign it, but I fully support it, and I look forward to to working with Mr. Bartels as soon as possible.
Thanks, Alderman Hipskin. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 points. First, in regards to whether we need the consultant or not, I think most of us would agree we need the consultant. I think something like this, we're being presented a bill of goods. And, it just so happens that this bill of goods is somebody that's well known to most of us. I, too, have a great deal of trust and respect in Mr. Bartels, so I have no problem supporting it. But, like anything, we're signing on to a bill of goods, and a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road, it's our job as a council to make sure the bill of goods we were sold is the bill of goods we're getting. And I'm confident that this council will do that. So I'm in support of it. But the other point I'd like to make, and it's a little bit off of what's been discussed so far, and I hesitate to call it a wave of the future, because I don't think it's quite that. But what I really like about this agreement is it's salary only. Mayor DeCiani mentioned no bennies. You know, as those of you on the council that have been on the council and dealt with budgets over the last few years know what kind of hits we've been taking to the IMRF and to the police and fire pensions. We don't have to worry about that with this agreement. So if we get what we think we're getting and we pay Mr. Bartels a fair wage, and I would consider this a fair wage, whether it's $45,000 or $76,000, you know, we're ultimately the judges of whether that's a fair amount or not. And I'm sure we'll react accordingly. We don't have to pay benefits, where, you know, particularly the employee that was at the Historical Foundation before was on the books, had to pay benefits. Whether or not we got the benefit or not, it's not for me to decide. But we were paying bennies and we had hours calculated. I like this agreement because he's a contractor and we don't have benefits to worry about. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Healy. I think Alderman Gutenkopf, and then I'll go to Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've noticed I didn't sign this report. For some of the financial reasons that we've already talked about, I think Ken Bartels is great. I've known Ken Bartels for many, many years, and he has struck me as someone who I think can really step up and tackle these projects that we want him to do. That's not been my issue. I was looking at discrepancies in information we received in executive committee, information that came out of our council minutes, and then this final report were three very different numbers. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about where the numbers came from and how we ended up with these three wildly different figures. I'm not 100%, but I'm comfortable enough that I think I'd like to go ahead with this agreement. I would like to talk in more detail about benchmarks and measures of success. I think maybe it's not the point to do it now. I know that our intention is to suspend the rules this evening so that we can both pass this report and then pass a resolution later to execute a consulting agreement. So I think perhaps when we talk about the consulting agreement specifically, that we ought to continue the conversation about measures of success and what we're really looking for.
Thanks, Alderman Gutenkopf. Alderman Brown.
Yes, and I had the same concerns as Alderman Rose and Gutenkopf stated in regards to trying to follow the numbers. I divided 845 hours divided by 52, and that was an average of 16.25 hours per week compared to the 10 to 15. So it seemed to be on the high side. My one question is, so what is this going to be budgeted as? 45,000 in our budget, or is this going to be budgeted at 75,000? One question.
City Manager Borchert.
Depending on if it's a line by itself, I would recommend that it be budgeted at the max. If it's a line that has got other consulting services or other professional services in it, I would budget, as you recall, I've said from time to time that the budget is really the fence of spending. Can't spend beyond the fence, but you don't have to spend to the fence. If this ends up being in a line with a lot of other professional service fees, I would probably limit the amount for this assignment at the 30% over the 50 hours, or the 10 hours a week, which would be more like 58.5. I believe that's more in line with what's going to happen, understanding A, the assignment, and B, Mr. Bartel's even availability.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alderman Brown. Everybody good? All right. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Rose.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Hessa absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner absent. And that makes 12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion for the report does carry. On to item 6, reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials. Item A, updates from the mayor. I wanted to bring to the attention of the public that York High School, and coming up this Thursday, September 10th, is having a talk about drugs in our society. We have, according to our Chief of Police, Chief Neubauer, been brought to the attention that heroin is an issue locally, and which is very disturbing to, I know, this council, this mayor, and to everybody out there. And drugs, any type of drug, is illegal, and we as a council, do not support, and we'll do whatever we can to support our police department and our school district and our park district and all the other taxing bodies to make sure that we make our children aware of the effects, and we have, our chief is going to be speaking along with, I believe, Principal Dinah Smith, myself as well, and 3 former drug addicts that were on heroin are going to speak in front of many of the children from York High School. So that is coming up this Thursday at 7 p.m. at York High School in the, I believe it's the gymnasium. So anybody that has children, especially at the high school level, and even at, I'll tell you, even at the middle school level, if you'd like to attend, I would encourage our parents and the children to please come out and listen to this, because it's scary. Heroin used to be something that you would have to inject, and now it is in tablet form and powder form, so the ease of ingestion and the cost, from what we're being told, it's a highly addictive drug that can kill people. And so we are on it. Our chief and our department, I applaud them for trying to nip this in the bud as quickly and as soon and as possible. We are investing our manpower and stings throughout DuPage County and even in Cook County to make sure that we try and keep drugs out of Elmhurst. So that is coming up this Thursday. So second item on my report, in response to this lovely lady's question regarding pawn shops. Being that this, at the time when I gave my quote, was going to our zoning commission, as a mayor, I didn't feel it appropriate to comment as a mayor, being that they were making a decision on this, a suggestion for our board. But I did say as a resident that I was not for pawn shops. I grew up in North Elmhurst. I care about North Elmhurst, and I think this council cares about North Elmhurst just as much as they care about South Elmhurst. We have been advised by our city attorney that to outlaw pawn shops would put us in a liability issue, a legal issue, which would be very detrimental to our city. So we are trying to do this in a fashion. Unfortunately, when that first pawn shop came in, they came in as a jewelry store. And in our current code, there is no provision to outlaw pawn shops. So, but they come in disguise, they come in as a jewelry store, and all of a sudden they're a pawn shop. So this was our first that came into our community. It happens to be right down two storefronts away from one of my clients. Needless to say, we are reacting to this. We also had a person write to us and ask us what our stance is. We are forming an ordinance in the process of doing that will make them a C3 use with a conditional use, which puts them in a very awkward position. They will have to be by car dealers. There would have to be buildings suitable for them, and we would have to give them permission. So legally, it puts us in a position where we can stand and say yes or no, and we will not be also in a position where they could take legal action on us. So that is kind of the situation that will be, be coming to us at a later date, and we will do whatever we can to protect all of Elmhurst from what we would, I think many of us would say would be a business that we want in very limited use, and we will limit that use. I can promise you that. Next on the agenda is item B, and that's the 2010-2011 budget cycle. I refer to our city manager, Borchert.
Just a short verbal report to supplement the written report. The written report has been distributed to the mayor and city council. The budget activity with target dates is attached to this memo. This is the first cycle for some members of the city council. This has been a cycle that has proven effective for the Elmhurst community, but does rely upon, in a very significant fashion, that the elected officials work collectively to provide a target for the city staff relative to the budget. The mayor prepares a memorandum the end of October to the city manager, providing the target, if you will, for the city manager as to the budget. The budget is for the next fiscal year. That next fiscal year begins May 1st, 2010. A lot of work goes into that budget document. Clearly, from a staff perspective, and an elected official perspective, and a community perspective, we would aspire that all of that work be effective work and productive work and on point, on target to benefit the community. So it's very important that the elected officials let the mayor know what your priorities are so that the mayor can accurately identify the target for the city staff as they prepare that budget. Our activity schedule also provides for a tax levy. The tax levy must be filed at the county in December. That tax levy provides then the authority to DuPage County to send out tax bills which are paid in the summer following December. So the taxes that are levied in December are the taxes that fund, if you will, the next fiscal year budget. Again, it's a twofold document, the budget, that is. It's one, expenses, and second, revenues. We estimate expenditures, we estimate revenues as identified by the mayor's message on the target of services and the way to fund those services. From my perspective as the city manager, the last thing I want to say is that the subsidy, if you will, the subsidy for the single-family residential property owner, paid for by many other sources of revenue, appears to be over. The sales taxes which fund the budget, the extra income taxes which fund the budget, and extra motor fuel taxes that fund the budget, that subsidy is over. We've been identifying that structural imbalance for the last 8 years or so. That subsidy has forced the city of Elmhurst's municipal tax rate to be the second lowest tax rate in all of DuPage County, and it supports a very high level of service. But because the subsidy is over, one of two things has to happen. Either we need to fund fully for the services and fund services more the way the rest of DuPage County funds those services, or we'll only get the services that our subsidized rate provides, which will be much less services. So my suggestion would be that any cuts to core and critical services only be made after we would identify the implications, short-term and long-term, of what those cuts are. I believe that the costs of the cuts would be far more significant than the expenses to make up and pay for what those services are without the subsidy. There is all of September and October for your work with the mayor to provide the target for the city manager relative to the budget, and then the month of November to work out your details of the tax levy. And city staff, finance staff, all the departments are here to work with the committees, the mayor and the council in that regard. End of report.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert. And as we all know, since 9/11, our sales tax has been down. In fact, if you look at the projected deficit for next year, our sales tax is directly in line with what that deficit is. So in prior good years, before the auto industry took their big hit, we had a lot more sales tax dollars coming in. And during that building boom, for a while that we had here, we had new growth that was coming in that was offsetting some of that decline in sales tax revenue. Unfortunately, those reserves have been spent down, and we have to make some tough decisions here in the next few months. But we've got good people looking at it. We've got a great task force They'll be making some recommendations to us, giving us a couple of options, and it's up to us at the dais here to make sure that we deliver the services and the quality that this town respects and came here for. So I know when we came out of the city, my father moved to Elmhurst because of the top-notch quality services, police, fire, schools, parks, and I know as a mayor, I wanted to try and deliver as much as I can to make sure that, you know, my kids and their kids and everybody's kids up here, future of this town is in our hands, so we got to make sure we deliver. So thanks, City Manager Borchert, for that report. Item number 7 is an ordinance. I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance to amend Article 7 entitled Stopping, Standing, and Parking of Chapter 44 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Municipal Code of the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
City Attorney Storino.
I just want to remind the council, this was tabled at our last city council meeting, so a motion to remove from the table would be in order, and then a voice vote, and then passage of the ordinance.
Okay. I'd ask for a motion to remove the table on this particular item. Alderman Healy, Alderman Nybo, we can do this by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Now we'll go to the actual ordinance. Thanks, City Attorney Storino. And if City Clerk Spencer could, and I'll ask for a motion. Alderman Morley and Alderman York. And if Clerk Spencer could read the ordinance, please. Did you already read it?
I just read
You just read it, okay. I apologize. I thought you went halfway and then we cut it off.
No.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Alderman Nybo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to amend the report, so long as the city attorney is not suggesting that this is out of order. In Section 2 of the ordinance, I move to amend to strike the phrase, "On those days school is in session." From the ordinance.
I think it's been removed from the...
And those days when school is in session? Okay, we have a motion to amend by Alderman Nybo. Do we have a second? Alderman Wagner?
I don't know if that's us.
Any discussion or questions?
I think, I do.
City Attorney Storino?
Is the ordinance in its current form, Alderman Nybo, not reflect the modification? Because I thought it had.
This is supposed to remain from
Alderman Nybo, the ordinance, does it reflect it, your change in the current ordinance, the way it's read right now, or?
No, I thought we had to make an amendment to the ordinance that we had on the table from the last meeting. So if the city attorney wants to, I think should I just adopt or move to amend that we replace the revised ordinance in front of us with the one that was on the table from last meeting?
I think that what happened was we tabled it at the last meeting so we could make the change, and I think we've made the change.
Oh, so we don't need to do that on the floor?
I don't believe we do,
Okay.
because I think we have it the way we want it with
Okay.
respect to Howard Street now.
All right, then I withdraw the amendment.
Okay, that amendment is withdrawn. Any other discussion? And we can call this for a roll call vote. Ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Let me get back where we were. Let's see. That was, I believe, Morley made the motion,
Yes.
and,
Alderman York, seconds.
oh, no, wait a minute. I'm confused. I thought I heard Morley move to accept the ordinance and Healy to second.
That was to take it off the table.
Oh, getting confused here. Thank you. Okay, Morley,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Gutenkopf,
Aye.
Pezza, absent, Shea,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Rose,
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mullenor. Absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion, that ordinance does carry. Onto item 8, resolutions. And I'd ask Clerk Spencer to read the resolution, then I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a consulting agreement between Ken Bartels and the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
All righty. Ask for a motion. Alderman Healy, a second. Alderman York. Right, discussion. This was already a report that we had given. Are we pretty good on discussion, or should I? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate some of the comments that we made earlier about benchmarks and measures of success. And I think Alderman Rose was on the right track, that I'd like to see, as it's not already incorporated in the consulting agreement, that there are targets. I'd like to hear from the city manager maybe a little bit more of his concept of how he's going to set goals and how we know that this this relationship is meeting our needs.
City Manager Borchert.
Well, relative to economic development, I would seek his input as to development of a strategic plan which would not be implemented without the mayor and the council's support. But we will be coming back to the mayor and city council through the proper committees relative to an evaluation of and perhaps adjustments, or perhaps simply reaffirming our current economic development plans. There are plans for, through the comprehensive plan, the ultimate development of the city of Elmhurst, but how we get there, what's first, what's second, what's a major, what's a minor, is a ever-changing journey, if you will, but decisions are made to change based on some strategic notions of what's more important than other items. So that'll be a bit of a work in process, as will the possible alternative ways of communicating to the Elmhurst community that I'll be seeking from Mr. Bartels, his suggestions, notions for consideration. Again, those implementations won't be launched without mayoral committee and council approval in either a formal approval fashion, or the other way things are at times implemented are with a memorandum to the mayor and the city council that suggests that, absent a direction to the contrary from the city council, here's a plan, here's a schedule, here's an implementation of a bit of a change, and we're proceeding unless there's enough concern that we not proceed. If there's a concern, speak up, and we'll back up and we'll reevaluate. I believe we can identify more clear performance goals and objectives relative to the fundraising component, and I'll develop that relative to training of the board. The Heritage Center board is to be doing fundraising themselves. That was part of what the development director was working on, was his actions, his roles, but with the help and support of the board. Mr. Bartels will, in fact, it's tonight, the Heritage Board is meeting tonight. Mr. Bartels is there on the city manager's authority, and it would be certainly well less than the manager's authority, but to begin working with that board relative to their roles and their actions in fundraising, generally and fundraising specifically for the gala this November. We can put more specific goals in that regard, and then specific goals relative to what Mr. Bartels is doing himself and what the board does for the board. So I'll report back on that item in detail. The communications and the economic development will be through the actions of committee and council's review.
Thanks, Manager Borcher. One thing, too, I wanted to mention, and that you brought up a vital component to kind of like the three areas that he serves, that is Mr. Bartels. Communication is a huge area that we don't have right now in place. And we are going to be working with Mr. Bartels to get a process in place for our aldermen to communicate. Right now we have aldermen, including yourself, that do their own newsletters, they do press releases. We would like to see those things come through Mr. Bartels, because we want to make sure the facts are straight. We want to make sure it's the message that the council's giving, not one alderman, not one point of view. And we want to make sure that that message is intact. We had a situation recently with the pawn shops where a staff member, gave a comment, and the press can take things and spin things, and they spun my comment. It was in the opinion last week, and so even in certain situations, it'd be nice to have Mr. Bartels. There is kind of a refiner. He's been a great PR guy for the college. He understands how the press works. I think he'd be a great massager for our message to make sure that it's accurate. It's the right message for the community, and it's done in an expeditious way too. He's a pro in not only in development but also in PR and marketing. And that's an area, many other towns have a communications person full-time. You look at Addison, you look at, I believe Glendale Heights has a full-time communications person. So we are working with a contract person to kind of fill a few voids here. And I think it's important that we'll define some of those communication areas to let the staff and the aldermen know. We need to communicate more. We're doing so many good things. We're getting grants, we're watching the tax dollars, we're maximizing our constituents' services in relation to what they're spending. We're making cuts where we can make them. For $1 million in cuts in the last 6 months to show that we're running this thing as lean as we can, but still, bottom line, if you pick up that phone and call 911, the cavalry's coming, and if there's an issue at York High School, we can do what we have to do, and we'll keep on doing the things we're doing. I mean, all these different things that we're doing with our fire department, police department, we can't do unless we have the dollars to do it. And we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. So, but we need to talk more about the good things. The downtown, we redid the downtown. That was not communicated up front. Many people thought we were maybe wasting tax dollars with a new fountain. $650,000 in grant money. Not $1 came out of the general fund. But again, these are things that we need to communicate up front and have a message person on staff which Ken will fill that void. And also to help our aldermen communicate and make sure that they're effective in that as well too, and accurate. So.
I'd like a follow-up, if
Sure.
I may. Mr. Borchardt, you mentioned an economic development strategic plan. I know this is a 3-year contract, and I'm wondering if you have a target date for, in your mind, for getting the strategic plan crafted, and then I anticipate there'll be implementation time beyond that, but if you're looking to do this economic development strategic plan, do you have a target date in mind when you'd like to be ready to present that to committee? What timeline have you been thinking is appropriate for this?
I would like to roll it into the budget planning for next fiscal year. So prior to the budget being completed for next fiscal year, we'll have completed a kind of a strategic economic development plan for that section of our city operations. So January, January, we'd be finishing up the capital plan and the operations plan. The city council gets the operations plan in typically the first meeting in March, so probably an operations plan for economic development would be available in January or February.
Anybody else for discussion? Alderman Brown.
Yes, and actually, I think this is a point of order. We were given today a memo in regards to this consulting agreement, in regards to a 90-day termination provision. Is this a part of the current motion, since that was just given to us on the dais today, or is that separate, that we would, if we would like to do this, that we would need to amend the current motion?
No, it's embodied in the consulting agreement that's before you tonight. The 90 days is in the agreement.
Okay.
90-day termination provision is in the agreement.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Brown. So again, pretty much an at-will agreement that we could, with 90 days' notice, get in or out of.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, apparently I have several questions about this whole process to help me understand how Mr. Bartel's consulting fits in with our overall goals. You mentioned that one of the tasks that you'd like to see him tackle involves training the Heritage Center Board, yet that's something that the outgoing development director had been working on. Mr. Bartels is not going to be able to devote as much time. He certainly won't be working for us full-time. How do you see him being more successful than the full-time employee was able to be in training the Heritage Center Board in their role as fundraisers?
Can I help answer that? Go ahead, John.
Well, I think people make a difference, and I think Mr. Bartels will be more effective and productive than where we were before. He's going to have to be more strategic because he's only going to be spending 10 hours a week and dividing that up to some other responsibilities from time to time. But we can certainly utilize the manager's office staff to assist, as well as the remaining staff at the museum. But a lot of will be board training, which is done in the evening when the volunteers to the board are available.
I think, and I want to add to that, I think to be able to get a seasoned veteran that knows this town, knows who the players are, especially with development, knowing who is a very philanthropic person, that gives him a 100-yard start right out of the box in a 200-meter race. And he's got a proven track record of success from the college, built that endowment to its highest level ever. He's had an excellent track record in all the things he's done from our Economic Development Commission. He was on the actual corporation. So I think we got a winner here. So, but in answer to your question, when you bring a person in from outside the community, and you, having been a fundraiser that wasn't a professional fundraiser, but did a pretty good job of raising about $1 million to help kids in this town with disabilities, I can tell you that having a local guy that knows who the players are is going to be a huge benefit to us. So, and Ken is that person, and he's a relationship builder that can, that knows how to make it happen. So I think he's just a great pick. So, but these are good questions, but in response to them, time will tell, and I think the proof will be in the pudding. So, you got nothing to lose, and we're saving quite a bit of money. Anybody else? All right. Hearing none, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Healy.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Gudenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza, absent. Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That resolution carries. Item 9, other business. At this time, is there anybody that would like to bring up any other business? Anybody? Alderman Morley.
Mr. Chair, I missed my opportunity under reports and recommendations when Mr. Borchert was talking about the budget schedule. I've been getting phone calls on a couple of questions, and the task force seems to be getting some press. And I'm just curious, because it's not on our timeline here. When will the task force be making a formal recommendation, and in what format will that be?
I believe we are going to have the recommendation given to us the first meeting of October, which I believe is October 5th. Is that correct? I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Yeah, I know that the task force is targeting to get their report to the mayor before that first Monday in October, to allow the mayor then to understand it and put on the schedule for the city council to receive that report, first Monday in October.
And then will Chairman Diamond or somebody else be there to present the report and answer questions?
Yes, Chairman Diamond and Co-Chairman Levin would be there to present, answer questions. I'm sure many of the was broken up into several subcommittees. Those chair people will be there. And more than likely, knowing this task force, you'll probably see most of the task force there as well, too. They're working hard, and it's a tough situation that we're going to be dealing with. They're trying to prioritize if we do have to make cuts, and if you know, they're also looking at revenue streams and trying to help us figure it out. So, and we appreciate all their hard work and their effort. They've been meeting religiously every Wednesday. They've been meeting on top of those days, you know, outside to work on each one of their individual subcommittees. So, we do appreciate all their hard work, and then look forward to their recommendations. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Follow-up question?
Alderman Healy.
I would request that we get that report, the council get that report at least a week in advance.
Okay.
I would like to get the report outside of the normal Thursday before Monday routine.
Sure.
Because if they're going to be there to answer questions, I'd like a little extra time. Maybe not a whole week, but certainly more than Thursday for Monday to be prepared to, you know, ask any question that comes up. So if I might just make that request.
We'll be meeting with the chair people tomorrow, so we can, I'm sure that would not be a problem.
Thank you.
So, sure. Alderman Rose.
Yeah, I want to support that, even if that means we don't get it till the middle of October. I would prefer that we get that in enough time ourselves to look at that, et cetera. So if they're being crunched, I would even prefer it go to the second meeting for us, just so we've got that time ahead of time.
Very good. Any other business? Okay, moving on to announcements. Any announcements from anybody? City Manager Borchert.
Just two quick ones. Would remind the city council that the city is a member of the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. Summer recess is over. They're resuming their regular meetings now, which are the third Wednesday of the month, typically third Wednesday of the month, and they're meeting in September. Any member of the city council can certainly attend that if you wish. Typically the manager attends and the mayor, and from time to time other department heads, depending on the topic of the business meeting, and frequently elected officials from the aldermanic level attend as well. So we monthly give you a copy of the business meeting opportunity. I won't make announcements on a regular basis. Having done it now, if you wish to attend, let the mayor's manager's office know. We'll RSVP for you and meet you at the meeting. Secondly, the city did receive a recognition from the American Planning Association Illinois chapter that the City of Elmhurst Comprehensive Plan has been judged worthy of the Daniel Burnham Award for Comprehensive Plan, which is an award of excellence from that planning agency. So all of the council that participated, all of you did participate at some level. The Zoning and Planning Commission, I see Chairman Whistler in the room. The chairman as well as the commission spent an incredible amount of time on that comprehensive plan effort, and it's affirming and pleasing to see an independent third-party professional organization recognize that good work being done here in Elmhurst. So congratulations to the commission and the council for that effort. We'll understand a little bit more what Elmhurst did that allowed the award to come to Elmhurst. We'll report on those specifics when we hear more about it, but we're pleased generally.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert, and kudos to the zoning folks, including Chairman Whistler back there, for doing a great job on that comprehensive plan. It's a roadmap for us to follow, And it's great that we have a great town that has a great comprehensive plan, but it's the people behind it that actually made that happen. So thank you, Chairman Whistler. Two other events I wanted to bring up. I brought this up last meeting, but this Saturday is the ECAF annual gala, where they actually are auctioning off this year, the public art display is the rain barrels, and there is one Thomas the Tank that will be auctioned off. It's kind of a special art exhibit that our very gracious city attorney, Storino, was fond enough to donate for the charity. So please come out. It's at the Diplomat West. That's this Saturday. They've got some auctioneer by the name of PTC Andy that's going to be up there with a mic trying to raise some money for our local kids. Diplomat West this Saturday again. The next day, the Brianna Walk, our second annual Brianna Walk. It's an autism walk that we do every year that benefits a local speech and language provider here. It's called CSLD. They're right here in Elmhurst. They're a 501c3 on the north side of Elmhurst, our great area over there that I love. That's where I grew up, and that's where my daughter learned how to talk. And so we're celebrating her 1,000-word vocabulary. She's 6 years old now and doing a great job because of that center there, as well as District 205, who's put a lot of time and effort into her as well. And got 100 kids in this town that have autism, many with special needs and learning disabilities. So we'll have a big day, hopefully. We've got a lot of sponsors helping out, and we're expecting a big turnout. So please mark your calendar for Sunday. That's September 13th at Barron's Park. 10 o'clock is the start, and we had a mailer actually go out today. So if there's any questions, you can see that mailer. And any other announcements? Alderman Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just recalled seeing a notice in our packet, and I'm not sure if this is open to the public or not, but this Thursday for the Elgin O'Hare Western Bypass meeting, if either you, Mayor, or the city manager can explain a little bit more detail if it is open to the public and what is being planned to be discussed at that meeting. Thursday, I think at 1 o'clock.
Yes, that's kind of a task force that I'm actually on as the mayor of Elmhurst and representing, I believe there's 4 mayors from DuPage County on that task force. I'm not sure if it's open to the public, but I couldn't see why not. It's talking about, the options. I know City Manager Borchardt's going to be going. If any of the aldermen would like to come out, you're more than welcome to. We're talking about the western access as well as the option as far as southbound option coming from O'Hare, the new Western Express to 294. And with that, I know especially for the 3rd Ward aldermen and alderwomen, we have an issue which we're going to tie into this, and that's North Avenue off 294. Getting a turnaround or a different type of exit so that we can get traffic to go eastbound off of 290 instead of just westbound traffic. This will keep a lot of that truck traffic from having to turn around in the 3rd Ward, and which is very cumbersome to the neighbors, to our children, as far as public safety. So we are working with this group to work with the various intergovernmental bodies, namely the Tollway Authority, which is probably going to be the only group that can afford to build this. It's going to be about a $300 million project, or excuse me, $3 billion project. And we're looking at the only way it's going to get done is with the tollway. So knowing that we have this issue with North Avenue, we are trying to wrap it all together. So I have volunteered my services to be on this task force as well as our city manager, and we will make sure that Elmhurst gets its fair share. I see hopefully a shot in the arm for Grand Avenue for the north side. We're trying to bring as much business into this community as we can, and we are going to try and get the option 203, I believe, is the option that we're in favor of, and it looks like that's the option that we're going to be getting. Option D, and then the version of that is 203. That will give us a nice connection off of 294. And again, we're hoping to get ramps at Grand so that we can have a nice shot right into our industrial park as well as our car dealers, which are right now desperately in need of some traffic. But very good question, Alderman Brown. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to announce that Alderman Pezza and I are holding a town hall meeting for the 1st Ward on September 17th, 7 p.m. in the public library. Mayor DeCiani will be joining us, and our intention is to update 1st Ward residents on what's happening specifically in the 1st Ward and throughout Elmhurst, and give people a chance to ask questions and meet both of their aldermen. That's September 17th at the Elmhurst Public Library, 7 p.m.
Very good. Yeah, we are trying to do these town hall meetings. I know Alderman Shea and Alderman Leader, we did one over the summer, and it's our commitment to make sure that you're heard and to know that your alderman, you know, the fortunate thing about Elmhurst is we're a city, and we have 7 wards and 2 aldermen in every ward that are working hard for you. And these town hall meetings, I think, are a great way to inform us as to what your needs are, and so that we can properly address them. So we encourage them, and I look forward to being with Alderman Pez and Alderman Gutenkopf. Anybody else for announcements? No? Any motion to adjourn, please? Alderman York, Alderman Hipskin, all in favor by voice? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion to adjourn. Yes.